In 2026, the greatest show on earth has officially kicked off. 48 nations. One golden trophy. But tonight we ask the question nobody expected, but everyone needs answered. What if Earth's mightiest heroes suited up for their countries? Which superhero belongs on which World Cup team? And most importantly, who would win? Here is how this works. We are picking one superhero per nation, not based on where the hero was born. Based on style. Based on DNA. Based on how a team plays and what they stand for. Because in football, just like in comics, it is never about where you are from. It is about what you represent. We have got 8 nations. 8 heroes. And at the very end, the question that started this whole video. Messi and the Flash, side by side on the same pitch. Who walks away the bigger legend? Stay until the end. Because that answer is going to surprise you. The United States. Host nation. First World Cup on home soil since 1994. And there is only one superhero who could possibly represent the stars and stripes, a soldier who was told he was too small, too weak, and too stubborn to matter. A man who never, ever quit. Steve Rogers. Captain America. Christian Pulisic. 84 international caps. Goals scored in 3 consecutive World Cups. Called a flop at Chelsea. Shipped to AC Milan. Written off by every pundit in the sport. And every single time he shows up. That is Captain America energy. Not dominance through natural gifts. Pure, relentless refusal to quit. Pulisic is America's super soldier. Full stop. Captain America's power is not strength. It is tactical intelligence and unbreakable will. Mauricio Pochettino built this USMNT the exact same way. No one individual superstar, just 12 players who would each take a hit for each other. Weston McKennie in midfield. Fuller and Balogun up top. Gio Reyna as the X Factor. Teamwork over talent. America's blueprint. The verdict? Captain America is the soul of America's World Cup. Tactical. Resilient. Impossible to break mentally. The USMNT opens at home in Inglewood against Paraguay on June 12. Cap would start every single match. And he would be the last man standing on that pitch every time. Every single time. Argentina. Reigning world champions. Led by a man who is 38 years old, standing at his 6th World Cup, and is still regarded by half the planet as the greatest player who ever lived. For Argentina, the hero could not be more obvious. James Howlett. Logan. Wolverine. Wolverine is hundreds of years old and still the most dangerous person in any room. Messi is 38 and still the measuring stick by which every footballer alive is judged. Both have healing factors, except Messi's is emotional. He absorbs pressure that would shatter lesser men. Every time critics write him off, he comes back sharper. They are the same person. Remember what Wolverine's real power actually is? Not the claws, it is the regeneration. The total, absolute refusal to stay down. Messi was knocked out in the round of 16 in 2018. He won Copa America in 2021. He won the World Cup in 2022. He is biologically incapable of accepting defeat. Argentina does not just win, it survives. Around Messi, rising star Nico Paz brings the raw instinctive brilliance of a young mutant still discovering the limits of his power. This Argentina squad plays like the X-Men, forged in adversity, doubted at every turn, and they always respond the same way. With their claws out. Defending champions. And they intend to stay that way. The verdict, Wolverine wears the Alba Celeste. Short. Stocky. Underestimated. Healing from every setback faster than the damage can accumulate. And at the center of it all, a man who no longer plays for records or trophies. He plays because the game is in his blood, his bones, his DNA. Messi. Wolverine. Same soul. Brazil. 5 World Cup titles. The most decorated nation in the history of the tournament. The birthplace of the beautiful game, Joga Bonito. And the only hero who could carry the Selekao? The king of Wakanda himself. T'Challa. The Black Panther. Vinicius Jr. is the living Black Panther. Watch him move and tell me that is human. It is feline. Every touch is calculated. Every sprint is explosive and deliberate. He was Ballon d'Or runner-up in 2024. He enters this World Cup as the single most feared attacker on the planet. Defenders do not just lose against Vinicius. They get hunted. Neymar. 34 years old. Returned from knee and thigh injuries that ended lesser careers, back for what could be his final World Cup act. Like T'Challa returning from death itself, the comeback alone carries mythological weight. Around him, Rafinha, Rodrigo, and Cunha complete one of the most technically gifted attacks at the entire tournament. Black Panther does not overpower enemies with brute force alone. He combines vibranium technology with pure natural athleticism and elite tactical intelligence. Brazil under Carlo Ancelotti plays exactly the same way: technical, fluid, and unreadable. When Vinicius gets the ball in open space, there is no formation on this planet that contains what happens next. The verdict: Black Panther wears yellow and green. Graceful. Royal. Devastating. Brazil has not won a World Cup since 2002, 24 years of hurt. But with Ancelotti's system unleashing Vinicius at full power? Brazil, is very, very much forever. France. Third-ranked nation in the world. 96 caps. 56 international goals. The deepest squad at this entire tournament. And their captain Kylian Mbappé moves at speeds that cause defenders to question the laws of physics. There was never a debate here. Barry Allen. The Flash. Mbappé does not just run fast, he thinks faster. He sees the gap before it opens. He is already past you while you are still deciding whether to make the tackle. This is the Flash in its purest form, not just physical velocity but cognitive acceleration. The ability to process an entire pitch in the time it takes a defender to blink. But France is not a one-man show. Ousmane Dembélé. Antoine Griezmann. A midfield with more collective talent than any other nation at this World Cup. Like the Justice League deploying the Flash, even when he blurs past everybody, the squad behind him still has to convert. France has those players. They have everything. The verdict: the Flash plays for France. Pure speed. Unstoppable on the counter-attack. The most dangerous transition team on the planet. When Mbappé gets space on that left wing, with the firepower of Les Blues running in support behind him, it ends. It ends quickly. England. The birthplace of football. 55 years without a World Cup title. And a nation that carries the entire weight of that history in every single match they play, every single tournament they enter. For England, there is only one hero with shoulders broad enough for that burden. The God of Thunder. Thor. Jude Bellingham is Thor. 22 years old. Real Madrid starter. Consistently one of the 3 best players in the world right now. The way he carries England, driving attacks from deep, dropping back when needed, lifting the entire squad with sheer force of will, is supernatural. He goes into spaces where ordinary players fear to tread. Bellingham is worthy. Harry Kane. Bukayo Saka. Cole Palmer. Thomas Tuchel's England finally has a squad worthy of the mythology surrounding this nation. But like Thor, England keeps finding dramatic, inexplicable ways to lose matches they have no business losing. Loki almost always appears in the form of a penalty shootout. The only question is whether 2026 is finally the year England lifts the hammer. Spain. Back-to-back European champions. Masters of tiki-taka. A team that does not just beat opponents, they make opponents forget how to play football. They take your will. And leading this generation, Lamine Yamal. 18 years old. A player whose football exists in a different dimension from everyone else. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange does not fight by the rules of reality. He bends it. He finds solutions in dimensions that should not exist. Yamal does this every single match. At Euro 2024, he was 17 and he was Spain's best player as they lifted the trophy. The passes he executes, the angles he finds, they come from somewhere the rest of the world simply cannot see. The verdict: Dr. Strange plays for Spain. Infinite loops of possession. Opponents lost in dimensions they cannot escape. No Real Madrid players in this squad, just pure, systemic, suffocating brilliance. When Spain are in full flow, it stops feeling like football entirely. It feels like sorcery. Yamal. Strange. Both reality benders. Both absolutely terrifying. Germany. 4 World Cup titles. The engineers of modern football. No nation has ever approached this sport with more structural precision, more calculated efficiency, more tactical discipline. The hero is obvious. Tony Stark. Iron Man. The smartest strategist in any room, backed by a machine built to win. Iron Man does not win through raw strength. He wins by outthinking the problem, then building the better solution. Germany's football has always worked the same way, a system so precisely engineered that individual brilliance becomes a component of the machine, not the machine itself. Calculated pressing. Disciplined transitions. A team that executes a plan better than anyone else alive. Portugal. And we absolutely have to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. At over 40 years old, he is at his 5th World Cup. A man who refuses retirement the way Deadpool refuses death. Keeps coming back. Keeps talking about being the greatest. Keeps scoring. Deadpool plays for Portugal. And Ronaldo is Deadpool in human form. This is not up for debate. And that brings us to the question that started this video. Tonight, as the 2026 World Cup officially gets underway, Messi and the Flash are the 2 most unstoppable forces this tournament has to offer. One is the greatest player in the history of the sport, powered by 38 years of pure genius. The other is the fastest man alive, with 12 World Cup goals already in a squad that makes every defender on earth nervous. They are on opposite sides of the bracket. And if this tournament goes the way the lore demands it, they will eventually face each other. Argentina. France. Messi. The Flash. The GOAT versus pure speed. And when that match happens, you are going to want to have already subscribed to HeroLore. Drop a comment right now, which superhero belongs on your country's team? We read every single one. And we will see you in the next breakdown.